I've worked in mental hospitals where, not where, even now, like say you're the psychiatrist, I'm the patient. Your chair will be like this. My chair will be a stool, plastic stool, in case I soil the chair, and I'll be pulled by my clothes, by my shirt to sit down. And the moment the doctor start writing, I'll be pulled up to go. Until today, that's the experience in any psychiatric hospital. I failed to change that.
Assalamualaikum and welcome back to Real Conversations with Anita, brought to you by MIASA Malaysia and Tenang Is Good. It feels amazing to be back. After a few months focusing on the preparations for the International Stigma Conference 2024, we are diving right back into the heart of what matters most, breaking stigma surrounding mental health. Now, today's episode is extra special, and by the time you're tuning in, the conference, which took place on the 23rd and 24th of November, has already concluded. It was an inspiring 2 days filled with powerful conversations, eye-opening panels, and impactful stories. Now, today we're continuing that momentum with episode 23, where we will be discussing a key theme from the conference, which is deinstitutionalization in mental health care. What next? And I am truly honored, everyone, to welcome two incredible guests with us who has played pivotal roles at the conference. And the first guest is Dr. Roberto Messina. Dr. Roberto, how are you?
Fine. Thank you. Very well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberto, for being here with us. And of course, we have Dr. Abdul Kadir. How are you, Dr. Kadir?
Thank you very
so
much
for joining us.
Alhamdulillah.
All right, so a little bit of introduction before we dive right in. Dr. Roberto Messina is the chair of the International Mental Health Collaborating Network and also the vice president of the World Federation for Mental Health, whose groundbreaking work in Trieste, Italy, is globally recognized as a model for community mental health care. And we've been talking a lot about this, everyone. So very excited to have Dr. Roberto with us. And of course, Dr. Abdul Kadir Abu Bakar, the medical head at Gleneagles Hospital and advisor one of MIASA Malaysia since day one, a passionate advocate for transforming Malaysia's mental health system to prioritize community-based care. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, and we can begin. Okay. All right. Now, Dr. Roberto, we obviously want to dive a little bit about the work that you have done in Trieste, Italy, which is widely regarded as very, extremely transformative. But we would like to explore your journey a little bit, if we can. Dr. Roberto, can you share with us how has your journey in mental health began? How did it all begin? How did you become so passionate, not only in mental health, but the whole transformation that has happened, particularly in Trieste, Italy?
Well, it's a bit a long story, but I will try to summarize the key points. I was studying medicine, and during my last years, I was approaching mental health. I was at the university clinic in the hospital in my city, which was Bari in the south of Italy, and I was trying to study some significant things, including the work of Franco Basaglia, who was the pioneer of the Trieste experience. At that time was famous in Italy for the movement called Psichiatria Democratica. But at the same time was exposed to the traditional training and to traditional condition of people in this university world, which were using ACT and usual things. People were restrained, and I was not finding a coherence between what was reading, what I found there, and also particularly struck by the thing that people were treated in a very bad way, and particularly the recurring patient, the revolving door patients were still there. And sometimes we decided with a friend of mine, a colleague, to go and visit them at home. So we found them in their real life when we were discharged. I remember a person receiving a lot of ECT, and he was a man in his community, respected somehow, with his social networks. So I started to realize that these are people, these are persons behind, the illness. Then we started to visit the experiences there. Trieste was one of those, and I met Franco Basaglia. and so I was encouraged to be part of it. And so that's why I started to come. And just to mention, Basaglia and his team were discussing real needs of people, of real people in their meetings. This was completely different from the theoretical discussions about psychodynamics or biological things that I heard in the university. So that was impressing me, and I had a high motivation to do it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roberto. So from what you just shared, it seems to me that even from you being, in medical school as an example, you still found whatever that you learned didn't really sink in. It didn't really sit well with you. And so that was how I feel when I listened to your story, that you are more open because you feel that that wasn't something that you agreed upon, and so you tried searching other ways or methods.
The level of my disagreement with the medical school was also creating a crisis in me. I had some anxiety and depression, and I was a bit stuck in studies, so I found a new motivation in this more human approach.
That, more humanistic approach.
Humanistic, but also political, because this was about changing mental health, but also at least a little bit changing the society, the way of thinking. That was very interesting for me at that time.
Right, and it's also very heartwarming to listen to you speak about it, because when we hear, figures like Franco Basaglia, I mean, that's a huge figure within the space. How is he, Dr. Roberto, as a person? People like me, very inspired by him as well. Never met him, only heard stories, experiences from people like you. If you can tell us a little bit more about Franco Basaglia.
Well, with a huge charisma, of course, but very friendly, ironic. He likes to make jokes, and I introduced myself to him, he said, "Are you not a psychotourist? Because we don't like. If you want to work with us, you are welcome, but don't come here just for tourism." I said, "No, sorry, I'm really interested. I will be part of it." That was a great person, and when I was hearing him, it was such a direct communication about the key issues, which are the rights of the patients, the recognition of the person, the criticism toward the old-style psychiatry, etc. So this was very immediate communication, and completely different from what the university was teaching me.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Now, Dr. Kade, maybe to you, we all know when we listen to Dr. Roberto, this is very much, starting off with the medical model, charity model, very traditional models, and we really want to move away from these traditional models, moving to more the charity, the human rights model and social model, Dr. Kade. But you being a very passionate, not only you are a clinical psychiatrist, but you are a passionate advocate, sebenarnya. Dr. Kade, where does this passion stem from? How are you inspired? Why are you different from the clinicians in that sense? How did this
start?
How did it start?
Okay, I can tell you. 1993.
Okay.
I became a psychiatrist 1991. Traditional medical model psychiatrist, working in hospital Kuala Lumpur. Very busy, so-called busy. But I was a little bit different because I spent more time spending time with people in the hospital. Right. So I was criticized by the nurses. For what? For coming early to work. I clocked in at 7 o'clock, and I went straight to the ward and sit down and talk to people. And so I see what happened. They will be herded, you see that, and hosed down to take their bath. Breakfast will be thrown at them, and they complain to the boss because of me. Say, Dr. Kade, he comes to work very early. He goes back home very late. And my boss called me up and said, "There's a problem. You shouldn't come early." I said, "Why? I decided to become a psychiatrist because I want to know people. Right. And the only way to know people is to sit down and
to spend time with them.
Spend time with them, listen to them."
Right.
So then I got promoted and sent to a general hospital. Okay. One of the first few to go there. Mm-hmm. No psychiatrists. So I deal with physicians, general specialists, and I had one same colleague, nephrologist. What she's told me stuck until today. Okay. We have to walk the ward to see people, not to wait for people to come to us. And that struck me. And then I decided, I started the service in Johor Bahru. We managed to get the first psychiatric ward, psychiatric admission in a medical ward. It was the first one. It's a medical ward. The director says, I don't want a psychiatric unit because he gave examples of bad psychiatric unit he set up. One in Terengganu, which was near the mortuary. One in Taiping, away from mainstream. Okay, so he said, no, you try to find a way to, if you need admission, work within the medical. So I admitted them to medical wards. And I had arguments because my psychiatric patient will scream sometimes. So I said, the nephro patients will scream also, those on dialysis. So what was the big deal? We will manage, I'm there to see. So then I decided that enough is enough, I can't learn anymore. So I went to England. And the only place I could go at that time, I knew someone in the perinatal psychiatry, postnatal psychiatry in Birmingham. So I did some research work with him. Then I decided, this is not what I wanted. So I heard about this radical, dangerous psychiatrist in Birmingham called Sachidharan. Yes. Okay. Then one day I decided, took the courage, after about a year in Birmingham, to see him. Because my prof said, don't see him. You can see anybody else, but not him. So I went to see him, and that's it. I said, this is what I want. So we were seeing people at home, acutely ill. We'll take them from the hospital setting, take them to their house, spend time with them, listen to what they want to say.
What was key, Dr. Kadir, actually for you during the time? Because every time when I experience something, there's always something that clicks. Which one was it for you when you said this is it? Tapi this is it too. Was it the home visits that was possible that you felt okay, this is it?
Because I never saw any alternatives to hospitalization.
I see. Okay.
My practice, my training, my professors. No, it must be the hospital or the institutions.
Right.
Then I asked this question to Sashi, and he asked me to read 3 books. Okay. One was Richard Warner, Recovery from Schizophrenia. The other one was Alternatives to Hospitalizations, also by Richard Warner. And the third one was this by Recovery. I can't remember the name, on Recovery. The Caribbean guy who wrote on recovery of schizophrenia, challenging the views that what we were taught wanted. Actually, if you do longitudinal studies, it's not the wanted. There are a lot of people who do well. So then I met a family member. He said, doctor, people talk about schizophrenia, very bad, but in the word schizophrenia, there's hope. And that really opened me. So that's nice. And then Prof. Sashi says, you must go. I never heard of Trieste.
Oh, during the time?
No. During all those years, I've never heard Trieste and said, you must go. So we arranged for a visit, 1997. I remember it's July 1997. Significant date, 2 things happened because we went to see the graduates. The first time I ever see a group of mentally ill who graduated with a degree awarded by University of Trieste. I said, wow, this can happen. And that's also the year, 31st July, when Princess Diana died in the crash in Paris. So it stuck into my mind 2 things.
Understood.
One,
Two things.
Yeah.
2 things. Okay. Right. Thank you, Dr. Kadir. Now, Dr. Roberto, maybe back to you. Over the years, you've worked a lot with psychiatrists, with policymakers and communities. When we talk about Trieste, right, and that is a beacon of hope, obviously, it's a gold standard for all of us. Now, what do you think has been the most challenging aspect of deinstitutionalization of what you've seen, and how did your team, how did the entire team basically at Trieste address these challenges? Because I know it took 20 years for full closure of institutions, that whole process took a while. The whole country. But in Trieste specifically, how was that process like?
Yeah, well, I joined the process at the end.
At the end, right?
Last couple of years, but
90s, was it in the 90s?
No, it was in the 70s.
Oh, it was in the 70s.
Well, I'm quite old now, so at the end of the 70s, I started to work first as a volunteer doctor. Then I was hired by them. No, the process was fairly advanced, but it was based on this kind of equality between people were the patients of the hospital and now the patients of the community centers, which were established in the meanwhile. and the staff, because you cannot hardly recognize the difference when you enter a community mental health center. First step,
Everyone looks the same.
Looks the same and
Yeah.
talk
No
the same.
uniforms.
The space was shared.
Yeah.
Beyond the table, you find today we can say the peer and the psychiatrist in a very normal conversation. I was, very confused because in my experience, doctors were wearing white coats, etc. So the difference in power was evident. So this mix of the sense of a common enterprise, I think this was Trieste and some other experiences in Italy, not just Trieste, where everyone was on board. So the patients, for their reclaiming their rights, their freedom, being part of the process of liberation from the old institution, not liberation in absolute terms, because it's a long way for each one of us to become really free, but also for the staff, because the staff discovered, the nurses particularly, but also the doctors, they can work better in a condition of equality, of listening to people, talking to people, not controlling people, not having power on them, but developing something with them in a process of cooperation for the better, for finding solutions to their lives, for finding a solution to the problem that psychiatry has in its own job, that is to be like sometimes an alien to the patient, someone who can control have a power on him, but has been a real collaboration, a real partnership. This was, and also the boundaries between normal and not normal.
Yeah. How do you define that? What does it even mean?
Yeah, well, there is a motto in Trieste, up close, nobody is normal.
Up close, nobody is normal.
It's taken from a song, in fact, by Caetano Veloso. Vaca Profana is a quote of this song.
Up close, nobody is normal.
Yeah, and I think really is that way. Particularly people who are engaged in mental health, they have some relationship for sure,
right.
Personal relationship or family relationship, even when you are a doctor. So you have to recognize it. We are part of a challenge for this old conception, this old way of treating people and developing something which is more, on a process of reciprocity, having reciprocal relationship. That's, for me, was the most important.
I like that a lot. Mutuality, that's what we say as well.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Berto. Now, Dr. Kadir, taking off from what you just said just now, and then now you know about Trieste, right?
Yes.
During the time. So during the time you didn't know about Trieste, now you find out about Trieste. What happened next, Dr. Kadir, for you?
I came back to Malaysia.
Yes. After that, you came back to Malaysia, and what happened?
I've talked about Trieste. I started home treatment first.
You started home treatment first.
Acute home treatment first, because that's where the idea got imbibed. The mental hospital, I left it behind.
Okay. Oh, so you left that. Okay.
Left that behind, because each time I talk about the mental hospital, obviously it's difficult. We cannot do it. We need it. Okay. I said, okay, leave it behind. Let's show them what we can do from acute admissions. And we did that. We did that. I published a paper to show that we can reduce patients being admitted. Okay.
But what was that transition like? Because you can't just say, okay, let's do home visits and just go to the homes, right?
Because I was yes, I told you I had to admit my patients to a medical ward.
Right.
The population is about 3 million, and half will go to the mental hospital. The other half will come to me. I just can't admit everyone.
Okay.
So
then you started. So
this
you
is
took
an
your
obvious
own initiative.
Yeah, because I know there is an alternative. This is an obvious alternative. Yes. So then the DG found out, because the state director was a public health guy. He said, this is the way forward. Is it? not psychiatrists. This is what everyone should do. So he called the Director General to see me, and I presented my paper to him. He said, does your boss know? I kept quiet. I said, no, he doesn't know. Actually, he knows. What he told me is that the old law doesn't allow you to do home visits. I know the old law. The old law governs to bring patients into a mental hospital. Doesn't say anything about going to the house. I said, when are you going to the house? They invite me.
There's a loophole, right?
There's
there.
a loophole. But if I'm invited, because I remember Prof. Tashi says, All you need is someone to open the door for you. Once you're in, you can do whatever you like. Okay, so let them open the door. You go sit down and talk as friends, as human beings, like what Roberto mentioned. Then you're seeing them in a different environment. No uniforms, no nurses standing behind. You know, if I've worked in mental hospitals where even now, like say you're the psychiatrist, I'm the patient. Your chair will be like this. My chair will be a stool, plastic stool, in case I soil the chair. And I'll be pulled by my clothes, by my shirt to sit down. And the moment the doctor start writing, I'll be pulled up to go. Until today, that's the experience in any psychiatric hospital. I failed to change that. Because the training is still the old training. I went to the medical school. They say, this is too anti-psychiatry. We cannot follow the Italian experience. They tell me. They told you. I mean, you've heard this all before.
There was a director of mental health before Abdul came to Trieste. He said, well, it was a revelation because nobody talks about Trieste. It's the hidden secret of psychiatry. They said.
Raman.
So that was the perception that the Trieste model is an anti-psychiatry?
No.
Is what it is? Or is
it can only happen in Trieste.
It's a way forward. It was a way forward to escape the desperation of psychiatry. It's just this kind of condition to be, keeping people inside.
When you talk to them, say, in an ideal world, that's what it is all about. So I work in hospital setting as medical, a senior position, medical MDAC committee chairman, medical dental advisory committee to the hospital. Every other department, anesthesia, dental, they don't talk about substandard service. They always say, this is the ideal, you give me this, I won't, if I don't have the ideal, I will not pull my patient's teeth. Except psychiatry. We are willing to accept substandard treatment for our patients. Or we don't have nurses, we tie them up. Okay, we don't have people to send them to supported employment. We give them sheltered workshop, doing things. All are non-evidence based. They don't want to see what's good, what's substandard. They are willing to.
Is it perception? Is it shortcuts, Dr. Kadi? What is it?
Why
isn't it quality?
Number one is the trainers, the professors, which the people in Trieste have managed to suppress them somehow. I don't know. It's remarkable what they did. Because I think when I talk to senior professors, the older ones, they're still old time, the same like ours. Okay, because this is psychiatry, it's in the brain, okay, and then the brain is destroyed, and you can't change it. You need to find medication. I started psychiatry in 1987. I'm hearing from professors of pharmacology, the cure for schizophrenia is round the corner. It has turned circles 5-6 times.
Oh my God!
And unfortunately, the psychiatrists in Malaysia is still trained like that. It's still trained like that. There is a medication out there that will cure, but I don't think there is.
So does it mean that your knowledge, Dr. Roberto, it doesn't trickle down to the young psychiatrists? Why doesn't it happen? What is the challenge?
No, I think it's hard to say, but it's for me it's mostly an attitude. It's a way of relating rather than a technique. That comes first. So, and this is sometimes difficult to transmit. I learned also looking at my older colleagues, and I remember when Pepe Dell'Acqua was my former boss. He went with him to a home visit to an alcoholic who was unable to go down the stairs. He took the alcoholic in his arms and he went down the stairs. So I was shocked because he was the consultant psychiatrist. And another time he asked me to help him to wash a lady with a nurse. Depressed, she was completely blocked, so she was not, So he was supporting the bath for this lady. And the nurse was washing, but also we were helping to raise from the pavement, and so all these physical things that means you are interested in the person. Right. were the kind of communication that impressed me and struck me very much. So I think these are similar experiences that we had. Despite the difference and being in two different parts of the world, we were just reflecting that these are common experiences because it's grounded on a human level, rather than on a technical level.
Just to add on to what the human experience is non-cultural.
Yeah,
It's
I
across
understand.
worldwide. I think you should know that.
Yes.
I was in the mental hospital in Johor Bahru. There was this ward. It's called a pre-discharge ward. It's a misnomer. Nobody gets discharged. It's about 120 patients there. So when I went there, I said, there's no such thing as pre-discharge. If you have to admit for whatever reason, the day they are well, you send them home. Right. But they didn't have that idea. So we have pre-discharge, 120 patients. I left it to the locally trained psychiatrists until one day one patient committed suicide. Then I said, no and behold, I will see every single person. I sat down with one of my doctors and we literally became social workers. Because these are people who had families. There's a story of a guy, of a lady there, right? Has been there months, and she comes from a distance, about 200 kilometers away. So about 2-3 hours. And I said, why hasn't your family come? She said she doesn't know. So I took the address with my car and my doctor. We drove to that house. The poor man is a rubber tapper. He earns daily wages. So I had my tears in my eyes. I said, why don't you come and see my wife? Doctor, the last time I came was 6 months ago. I had to sell my pants to afford the bus fare. So I said, okay, don't worry, sir. I'll help you. I'll send your wife back. And she went back and she lived happily. I met the son recently. Recently. The son came to see me. Thank you for sending my mother home. And I can repeat such similar stories for every single 120 of them because we sent almost everyone back home. So there was no pre-discharge ward. I think it's the same experience everywhere. You do that because these are human beings. You sit down, you listen to them, bring away their psychosis, remove their madness. There are people who have issues.
And in the mental health centers, they were talking in these meetings, which were open to the patients, to the users, we will say, people using services, not many more patients, but people using services. There were open meetings where everyone can have a say, and the discussion was about solutions for people's life issues, life stories, and listening and being concerned with what can be done, and so trying to find also practical solutions like about housing, a house to be cleaned, for instance. We went there and cleaned the house, and doing this, the relationship of trust can be built with the client, you see, because they say that how we can be interested in their real life. And this created a basis of agreement, and you can do everything. You don't need to have coercion because you can talk to the person, try to convince. If not, you can try again. You can involve a friend. We learn to work in this way, and for a couple of years we never used the involuntary treatment of the new law in Italy, because this was the system was going on and was very encouraging. Everyone was part of it. That was
so good.
Yeah.
So from Franco Bagzalia laid down that foundation,
Sure.
and then you guys continued.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is made, as I said, by modeling, by following some, gesture that someone does. It's not based in a technique, but we try to say something which is very close to what your movement of peace or recovery movement is saying today. That's the person is the main resource for recovery. The person themselves, they are not the problem, they are also the resource. And so we must help this process with all the instruments we have, the professionals, but also the human beings, the relationships, the social relationship, the social network, the support. Everything can be helpful. It depends on the unique combination for each individual that can be.
And everyone is different. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Now, Dr. Kadri, back to you. So now studying the TRIS model, starting the home visits, and when you were in Permai, you shared the story a couple of times where you ended restraint or you implemented no restraint in the hospital. How was that process like, one, Dr. Kadri, but how was the acceptance level of the healthcare workers and psychiatrists particularly? What was that like? And how did you stay true to that as well, Dr. Kadi? I'm sure it was challenging, lots of resistance, and all of that, and knowledge.
First things was I opened my eyes and ears to everybody. I listened to my nurses. It's difficult to implement. Patients, people are unpredictable and so on. I said, okay, fine. And then I said, okay, it made it a little bit higher rather than nurses to decide on restraints and isolation. I said, okay, it must be the specialist. Okay. The specialist must make a decision. So I had about 5 specialists. I told them, you make the decision. Okay. Then, you see, as Roberto says, the attitude is when you become a specialist, you don't see patients. You answer phone calls from the junior doctor, you give instructions. So they always give instructions is restrain PRN.
Restrain PRN.
Okay. When necessary.
Yes.
Okay. when in the medical wards, when you order tap paracetamol for fever, PRN, it is never given. Because the word PRN in Malaysian setting perhaps rare or never. Okay. So it's never given. But in psychiatry ward, when you write restrain PRN, all the patient need to do is cough.
Then you restrain.
They got restrained. So what happened is I kept quiet. I said, okay, I passed the buck to my specialist. Okay. It didn't happen. So one day, one person with some issues, substance issues, he wanted to jump down the building and he was sent to the hospital. So he got restrained as usual. The next morning, someone out of pity relieved the restraint from him. Okay. Then he took the string, the restraint wires, and hanged himself. Okay. So there was a negative incident. Said, all right, this is where I show my power. Okay. So what I did is I said, okay, this restraint is a dangerous weapon. So I took all of the restraint strings, whatever, and put it in my office. Because only I can decide when restraint. So I use my power. Okay, so then started talking with nurses. What can we do to prevent patients hurting themselves or whatever? So we started to talk and they said, we need this, we need this. I gave in because I could give. So I said, no more PRN because the restraint is decided by the direct, because it's in the law. A patient, someone with mental health issues got admitted, got restrained, somebody released in the morning, and in the morning there's a lot of activities, nobody spent time with him to learn what his issues are, took the string and tied himself and killed himself. So I decided, okay, enough is enough, my doctors is not doing the job, I have to decide on human rights ground. So I took the weapon out, which is, I wanted to do this long time ago. I took the weapon out, this is 2012.
2012.
And this was a result of going to Aceh. And I met this nurse called Budiana. She's a psychiatric nurse from Indonesia. She told me one thing that stuck to me today. You know, doctor, there's no evidence. I'm an evidence-based guy. I do a lot of research. There's no evidence for restraint. So I start to look through. When the nurse tells you, doctor, you need restraint, you must ask the nurse, where? Is it at the wrist? Is it halfway between the point where to tie? Because there's no such rule. It's just your own decision.
No evidence for coercion in
no
general.
Evidence for the evidence for opposite.
Yes. In contrary, so many evidences to show how coercion is harmful.
Yeah. So I took away the restraint equipment. So then listen to my nurses, address their fears. So then we increase the staffing. We make sure people are not admitted too much. Decrease the ward size. Make more space available for recuperation, for them to stress out de-stressing areas. So it's just the environmental things that get manipulated.
Okay. So that, sorry, Dr. Brito,
just
go ahead.
Similar to what Abdul said. Basaglia decided as director of the hospital to abolish all restraint, but there was still the use of the isolation room. And so, but one of the patients considered very dangerous was put there. He even was able to try to hang himself at the light. And from then on, it was abolished completely. This patient became the first cook of the first community mental health center because he was a wonderful cook. I remember him, a tall man. He was playing for basket. It was a great success because turning, asking him to be on our side, all together, part of the team. You become the cook. It was fantastic for him. So, but then the decision Basaglia was interesting because creating a new condition. Yes. You have to deal with the person and his problem without restraint. Do what you want, but don't use restraint. That means talk to them, try to find a nice atmosphere, open the door, go with him if they want to go out, accompany them in some place, maybe at home, and then convince to come back. Yes. Everything to develop a new culture. And when I came there, all the nurses have learned that. So very flexible, very close to people, very, they know that they have to respond to any question, not to diminish the other, not to invalidate the other, say, okay, this is delusional person.
Right.
No, taking seriously every single word that they are saying. This was incredible for me coming from the academic background.
But what makes it possible for Trieste and not possible for us, as an example?
Well, apart from great figure Basaglia and other people like Rotelli and that follow him, wonderful team. But on the other hand, I think it was at the right time. This movement became part of the overall movement for social change, for citizenship. It was part of the movement in the 70s to reclaim rights for people, also for women and for workers. The Statute of Workers was declared, the rights for workers. So it was part of the democratic change of the society.
Okay. That helped.
That helped a lot and turned into the new law that abolished psychiatric hospital because it was considered to be a scandal to have those kind of institutions because they were denying the rights of people, etc. So being part of a wider political change helped a lot. Tremendously, the Italian experience.
Right.
It was different in the UK, a little bit less political, similar changes, but less political. So Italy went to the very end because it turned into a political thing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roberto. Now, Dr. Kadir, the incident of that one suicide that you just mentioned, so that particular case triggered everyone at the hospital to want change or maybe wanting to do things differently? No. Okay. Tell me a little bit more.
So that incident gave me the
gave you the power. Not gave you the power. You took the power.
To take the power to use the law to say that it must be the director who decides it.
Okay.
So I use it. I used that law, and Roberto came to Permai.
Top down. Sometimes it's useful.
And I took the restraints, put it in my drawer. So any of my psychiatrists who wants to use restraint, come and talk to me first. I said, I asked, why you want to restrain this guy? Oh, he wants to smoke. Fine, walk him around, give him a cigarette, walk with him.
Okay, but now you've kept all the restraints. What are they doing? How do they prepare themselves when they don't know how to handle or manage?
Okay.
What happened?
One is calm them down with medication.
Okay, so medication. Okay, medication
2,
was there.
One-to-one nursing.
Okay.
3, send them home as quickly as possible.
Okay, and what's that time frame?
2-3 days.
2-3 days. Okay, that's quick.
And then we have
fantastic.
Emergency department, which is open. And I think you saw that word. It's open door. You can walk in, you can walk out. And say if they want to run away, let them run away. All we need is the house address. I got about seven transport to go after them to the house.
Yeah, the same things we were doing. Yes, someone left the mental health center. Even in the new services, you can have someone in crisis. We can be worried, but we contact the family. We go there by car and try to convince the person and negotiate again, come back, and they say, well, this is with the support of the social system around. So all these things, but also listening why, and maybe we can discover that was something that hurted them, like some behavior in the staff sometimes which was insulting them or not. And some real things were happening, not just because of the symptoms. Something happened that broke the relationship, and we have to reconnect and do something different.
Okay, so when I'm listening to the both of you, I find that what is really important as we are trying to strive and keep to deinstitutionalization in mental health care is actually the leadership. So leadership is actually key, Dr. Roberto and also Dr. Kadir. So Dr. Kadir, how do we move from here?
Like Basalia created a cadre of capable young people.
That's the thing.
Number one. Number two, Italy is different. Not because we can't do it here, but Italy has killed all its hereditary rulers. They remove the kings, they remove the dictators. We have not. So ours is still very feudal. So that's why I could do it when I was the boss. In other words, they say, okay, the boss is always right. In fact, when I went to the mental hospital, both, I said, there's only 2 rules in this hospital. I am right. Rule number 2, remember rule number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes for change you need that.
I understand.
But in the same time, you need to get these young people.
Yes.
I thought I managed to get a group of young people.
Yeah, because a lot of people claim every time when I speak to psychiatrists, they say, "Oh, I'm Dr. Kadir's student. I'm Dr. Kadir's student." I'm thinking, okay, good. You must be the person that I need to have this conversation with. And then, do you still practice restraints at your hospital? Yes, we do. Okay, so I'm not getting this, Dr. Kadir.
I'm not getting it as well.
Okay.
You certainly know the special rapporteur to the United Nations about the right to health, 2017, Dainus Puras. He wrote there are 3 obstacles for human rights realization in mental health. One is the biomedical model as such, because it prevents you to see the person and the wider range of needs that are required. The second is the power imbalance. So we have to deal with it. So what Dr. Kadir said is the same that I experienced. So when you create a democratic situation where the patients have more power and there is more negotiation and, let's say, dialectics, because Basaglia used to say, a question of a journalist once was, Dr. Basaglia, but the person with mental illness is dangerous. He said, well, it can be or can't be dangerous as any one of us.
Yes.
It depends in a dialectical way. So it depends but from the situation, from what you have in front of you, and the kind of situation. Yeah, that's great. And the third was the kind of evidence which are used to confirm the medical model, because research is not aimed to understand the complexity of reality. So these are the 3 points that we have to focus on. So we have a complex reality to deal with. We need equal power and democratization in mental health as any other aspects of society. That should be the tendency, but unfortunately is not confirmed by today's policies around the world. And of course, recognize that mental health has not just to do with psychiatry as part of the medical model.
Yes.
It's much wider.
Oh, much more than that.
Requires
Beyond.
a number of stakeholders, requires the recognition of the power of people with the experience.
Definitely. Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Roberto, and also Dr. Kadir. I think we've spoken a lot about deinstitutionalization and how do we move forward, what can we do, the TRES model, Dr. Kadir, what you have done and all of that. Now, Dr. Roberto, you have been, doing this for a very long time. At this juncture right now, what are your hopes? What do you hope for?
Oh, I think I have a lot of hope. I think that we are on the right side. I think that integrity of our vision is our strength. So we are not really influenced by powers because we are doing the right things, yes. I think. And of course, anyone can be criticized. We must be open. Yes. We don't have a truth. We must be ready to listen and to recognize the point of view. In this case of the yes. great movement of people with lived experience, which you're demonstrating today in this conference. So I think be open, open up the minds is the only. And I think the experience of Dr. Kadir and the experience in Trieste have a common point, which is very important. It's possible to change from within the system.
Yes.
It's possible to work in the institutions, not just to close them and reproduce the same mentality without changing anything outside, because these are not community-based services. There are psychiatric units in the community. You need to make a process that has to start with improving what is happening in the institution in a view of overcoming them, creating the condition to overcome the institution. This is what I've seen in the work of Dr. Kadir in Permai, for instance, and he demonstrated it's possible in Malaysia, as in Italy, as anywhere in the world. So it's a process that can be replicated if we believe that something can be done, even in the worst condition, to improve the quality of life of people mentally.
Thank you, Dr. Roberto. I think that's beautiful. Thank you so much for saying that. I really like what you said, integrity of our vision, and that is our power. And also to really understand that it's possible to change within the system, which Dr. Kadir, you have demonstrated within your own experiences and the work that you have done now. What gives you hope, Dr. Kadir, right now for the future of mental health in Malaysia?
There are a lot of young people who wants it. Okay, they believe that this is the alternative, but because I said with this feudal, the training is still biomedical, so they're still unable to challenge the university colleagues and outside colleagues. But they are doing things at the local level. A lot of these people that you spoke to are doing things at the local level, and they are unable to carry it forward because they have the boss who says no. It cannot. I don't want it done that way, or give an excuse of economics. We don't have the budget for increasing the staffing to spend more time with this person who needs that time. So we tie him out or keep him into a small room and let him be there. And despite a lot of adversity that happen, they still don't look at the adversities. They look at the difficulties. They turn the adversities to opportunities. But eventually the time will come, because as I've shown the number in the mental hospital
it's coming down.
It's coming down naturally.
Yes.
When you have doctors, nurses visiting people at home, sending them home early, preventing the revolving door, you will see the number becoming obsolete in time. The only thing that will be left will be those patients, those people who are there for long term, more than 10 years, who nobody have made contact, families have died and moved on.
Then they end up there.
Yeah, they're there. Okay.
I've seen similar things in Italy for the young doctors and young nurses, everyone this is working in mental health. Today, the medical model as such doesn't provide a real motivation because it doesn't offer hope. So we need people that has a hope for change, for looking people changing as themselves. They can change, as become more better professionals, better human beings, etc. So I think that's very important. It's confirmed by what an important sociologist that I like very much said, who died a few years ago, Marc Auger from France. He wrote that the medical model doesn't provide meaning to people suffering. So we need to have meaning when we do something. And this is why mental health is so powerful, because it can provide insight in the life of other people that can make you understand the diversity of the beauty of the diversity in our lives. And this is something which is wanted by people working mental health. They don't just want to have a medical explanation. They want something more.
Of course. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Now, just if you can maybe add to that, that's already maybe something that you can offer to them, but maybe specifically, Dr. Roberto, for mental health professional, or maybe for advocates listening today, what is one advice that you could offer to encourage them in their work right now?
Well, I think try to create a situation of partnership and collaboration. I think for me, the future for mental health can't come anymore, unfortunately, by one-man revolution, as it was in the 70s.
No longer.
Great people create the new, because we all know that these things are possible. And so we need an alliance. We need someone working together. So we need to recognize that mental health is a complex issue. It should be done by all stakeholders, starting from people themselves who have the mental health issues in their lives, and particularly when they recover, when they have the awareness to transmit and to communicate the importance of their experience to the others, and this can create like a kaleidoscope of points of view, a different perception that is what is required to approximately go to what is the complex of the life of the individuals and the mental health of the individuals.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Roberto. Maybe Dr. Kadir, last question to you as well. Some advice to mental health professionals, specifically, Dr. Kadir.
To my younger colleagues, you can actually abandon the medical model. Okay, you can understand the brain, but it doesn't really fit in the human being. That's number one. Number two, always listen to the person in front of you. I'll end up with a story. This is a guy, a young man, parents died, left some property. So in his so-called madness, he was angry at his sister-in-law for not convincing the husband, his brother, to share the property. So the anger worked up, and he became aggressive, broke things in the house. They couldn't manage him. They labeled him, some labeled schizophrenia, treatment resistance. So he came to see, he was admitted to the mentors many times, in, out. Then fortunately that day I saw him. I listened to him for about an hour plus. He's capable. He's a good cook. He can make very good teh tarik. He can make the roti canai. I listened to all that. Of course, he also said sometimes he has voices I choose to ignore because I don't understand that. I don't want to know that. I want to know what he can do. So after listening to all that, I asked him just one question. How can I help? All these things, how can I help? He broke down in tears. All his life, a career as a psychiatric patient, nobody has asked him that question.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's also our experience with the recovery interviews.
Yeah. So the first thing, how can I help? Broke him down. Can anybody help me? Is it?
Yeah.
I said, yes.
It's a question that nobody asks.
Nobody asks.
It's very strange.
You'll say now you need
Very
clozapine.
strange.
Very
Very strange, yeah.
So I think that's what they need to know. Say, how can I help? You need just a 10 minutes time, listen to them, because they've got all this background of breaking things, police report, you have all that documents and anecdote. Leave that aside. How can you help during that contact? I think that's what my appeal to my younger colleagues. Try to abandon the medical model. For now, we don't have any answer.
And if I can add just, and adding to that, in general, what can help you, not just the professionals, recognize the importance of other resources in the recovery process. This is something that we must be humble to ask to people and raise the voice of those who have the problem.
Okay. Once I did that, there's a success story to this. So we started social enterprises, mainly on the food business, restaurants and so on. So he became the manager. He started to be our supply manager. He went out, buy goods, supply all there, have a good record account. This is the guy who was labeled as a gangster and terrorist by his family. Then one day, Hari Raya, which is our Eid celebration, he had nowhere to go. So I said, Hanif, his name is Hanif, why don't you go back to your brother's place? I'm sure you have nieces and nephews. Buy them gifts with your money. I'll buy you the bus ticket. He took 2 weeks to decide. Then he said, Doctor, I'm going to take up your thing. I drove him to the bus station. He came back very happy. Sister-in-law very happy.
He was accepted.
He accepted. He comes back to his family because he has a good job. He wears a new watch. He gets new shoes, new shirts. Hari Raya, he spent money for his nephews and nieces. So listen to them. Find out what you can do to help.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kadir. Thank you very much, Dr. Roberto Mezina. I think it's been so heartwarming listening to the both of you and, of course, listening to the both of you today during the conference as well and hopefully tomorrow. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This was with Dr. Roberto Mezina and also Dr. Abdul Kadir. Both are clinical psychiatrists but have done tremendous work, one with the TRES model in Italy and, of course, Dr. Kadir with Permai Hospital here in Malaysia, implementing a no restraint policy in 2012. And hopefully we will be able to do more. And please don't stop just here. I know we had the International Stigma Conference, Beyond the Label, Empowering Lived Experience. We spoke about very challenging topics, but hopefully, with what you guys have learned, with the insights of both Dr. Roberto and also Dr. Kadir today, it can move our hearts, move our minds, and we can together collectively do more to make a complete transformation for mental health care in Malaysia. So that is it. That is it, folks. Please take care. And please tune in on MIASA Malaysia and also Tenang Is Good's podcast via Spotify and also YouTube. So until then, I'm Anita. Take care, everyone, and please take care of one another.
Thank you, Anita, very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.